What I realize is I need a plan. I need something that's going to kind of keep me in line for this whole project, something I can check off, making sure I have everything. I've thought of everything. I've thought about every pocket and the fabrics that are needed, because that was a big mistake I had made in my last bigger project. And I kept getting stressed out. I kept getting overwhelmed, and it was just a struggle to complete the project. And to be honest, the project it's still not complete. And I see a lot of things I actually would want to change. And I don't want that to be the case for this jacket. After all, I'm passing this jacket over to somebody for them to wear. So really, in the end, like I'll have my dad wear it and actually give me feedback on, things he would love to be changed in like the next rendition if there is one. So I have on here a aerial shot of my jacket. I'm going to go through a little bit about what I think is going to be changed, what I'm going to keep, and whatever else I think of on the spot. This will be at least like a glance of what I'm thinking, and we'll see how it goes and how it ends up in the end. And all right, so let's get started and not jabber on too much, because I do have a tendency to do that, and then I have to edit it all out. So for the first bit, I have this front jacket piece. Now I think what I need to do is bring out the front neck of the jacket to make it straight. I'm going to need a hem facing, which is the blue line here. Now I want a hem facing because that's rather huge, because I was thinking, well, okay, this is a work jacket. It's a longer work jacket than typical length. Would it be cool to have the hem face be extra long, so that way when you sit down on like a cold bench, like going to your grandson's football practice, your little tush isn't freezing? It's an idea, and I wanted to put it in there just in case it's something that ends up being functional and cool. Now, would I put any cushioning in it? No. But to be like 2 layers of wool together, that would be potentially really nice and warm instead of like some kind of lining fabric. And then I have my front facing. This is typical. You always want a front facing instead of having a lining go like straight behind your zipper, where it has a chance of getting caught and then your lining rips, which is really annoying and hard to fix. Next, I have my side panel, and wrong button. My side panel here, I think I'm going to keep the side panel as it is, and I'm going to utilize, let me get my pen really quick, or my brush. I'm going to utilize this seam here and this here to have a zipper inserted, most likely, between those areas, because I want access to the back, so that way my dad can kneel, squat, do whatever he needs to do, but then zip it closed to stay warm if he's walking. Back jacket pattern. So that's the outline, keeping its original shape. Nothing special needs to happen here, except later I have my pleats, which I did not draw in here, but I'll leave myself a note to go back and draw those in, because that's something else that I need to figure out, like a prototype kind of thing, to see how it works before I just pattern something willy-nilly and expect for it to work, and it doesn't. And so to do some practice runs on the construction and make some notes on how to do it is far better than just going in and just saying, what the heck have I done? So yeah, this will get a back lining that stops at the facing. And then I want to add in my favorite little features in jacket patterns is like this half moon back neck facing. And this is for adding in branding. Now, I don't own my own label brand apparel company. One day maybe I will. I don't know. it depends on how God blesses me with life and if I have the income to do that kind of stuff. But for this sake, New Heritage Wool is the name of this YouTube channel. But I hope that if I make a apparel company, that will be the name of the apparel company, and a few other things that would be tied to it. So that's where my branding is going to go. Okay, next is the sleeve. So for the sleeve, I have my undersleeve and my upper sleeve. So this is the full length. And then we have my lining, which will be not quite half of the sleeve, but at least 3/4 of the sleeve. And this is because there's an internal sleeve. And this internal sleeve, I presume, will be of a lighter weight fabric, maybe not a lining, but maybe like a cotton flannel or a wax cotton. I'm still figuring it out. But the idea here is to have an internal sleeve with a knit cuff, and then you have your outer sleeve that makes it look like a normal jacket. And the internal sleeve is basically helping keep out any cold air, but also any snow, any wood chips or sawdust or dirt or leaves, because my dad goes around and helps our elderly neighbors get rid of trees, rake leaves, and whatever they ask of him, because he's just the sweetest guy ever, and he just helps everybody, and he's such a great example. So anyways, that's the purpose of the sleeve. And then there's the sleeve cuff, which is a smidge shorter than everything else because you need it to kind of draw in so it stays. So I'll end up having to cut something and then stretch it and then sew it and then put it all together. And then we have the collar. The collar shape will change to look something a little bit like this. And I have the horsehair, that is the only place I'll be putting horsehair in this jacket. And if you aren't familiar with horsehair, that is a non-fusible interfacing. So you have to do hand stitching to apply it into a garment. And it is very sturdy, and it's not going to morph or distort when you wash it. And it's absolutely amazing. So in the collar, I want it to have some form of structure, and I don't want to use fusible because it deteriorates over time. And I want this jacket to just last forever and go through lots of challenges and tests with, everything my dad does. So luxury collar, here we go. And then there's also going to be a collar stand, which I didn't manage to get on here, but essentially it's just like a little bit of a moon shape that's elongated, and it too will have horsehair and some top stitching to give it that structure to do what it's told or what it says. It stands. So that's the general scope of this jacket, and this does not include all the pockets and all of the shoulder pleats and all of that. So I will be thinking through those, and I'll be adding to this, and then once I kind of think I've got it figured out, I'll probably add it in one of the videos in the future. But as far as foundational start, this is what I think is really important to have, because I didn't have this the last time I made a jacket. And I think this is going to help me out a ton just to stay on track. And then everything else is what I call just cosmetic. And it's going to change a lot in size and proportion. And all of those things will be determined on, what my dad thinks. Yeah, so that's kind of what I'm thinking. Let's hope I can stick to that kind of idea of how to run things. But yeah, so that wraps up this part. Now all I have to do is go implement it all, and I'll take you along for the ride. Okay, what I've been doing is mapping out my entire sleeve. So I have, hopefully I can show you a little bit, but there's a line here that tells me where my internal sleeve will stop. There's a line here where my cuff will stop, and then this final line right here is where my sleeve finished hem will stop. So I have some adjusting to do. For the internal sleeve, I'm bringing in 1/8 of an inch on either side. I still have to do all of this stuff on the other sleeve. So 1/8 and 1/8. In total, I'm going to be taking it in a 1/2 inch. So the internal sleeve will be a 1/2 inch smaller than the external sleeve. And then in a minute, I will figure out how long my rib cuff will need to be in order to kind of cinch everything together and actually grasp on the wrist and not just like hover over it. And what I realized from doing this, actually, before I get into the top sleeve, the upper sleeve, what I realize is I don't really need a lining fabric for the sleeves. Instead, it's just going to be wool, and then it's going to be most likely a cotton flannel or like a waxed cotton, maybe. I don't know. I want to do some research first before I actually decide what it's going to be. Okay, so I have it on both pieces. And I need to add seam allowance, correct seam allowance, like hemming, to the bottom of each sleeve. Well, to the bottom of each sleeve pattern. It is a casual day today. I am still fighting this cold, but have energy to pattern and do things and concentrate. So I'm going to just keep going, and then probably tomorrow I'll start editing or something. But today's plan is to map out my linings and facings on the base pattern. I don't want to do double the work when I don't have to. If it's just for one person, it makes so much more sense to map out what my back yoke is going to look like and what the front yoke is going to look like, and facings, half moon facings, all the things on my base pattern, and then use the base pattern as something I trace from. And then as it evolves, yes, I will trace and make new patterns with the adjustments, because at some point, all of these different colored lines will get confusing. But before, the process that I took was make a pattern that is your base, and then make a new pattern every time there's a change. And that works for like mass production because it's all done digitally. But for an at-home sewer such as myself, no. Paper and tape are my best friend. And I'm going to try this out in this project and see if I like it. I presume it's going to be a lot easier. And I'm going to be able to get this project done faster than I did in my last project. At least I hope so. Now, with that said, I'm going to start with the front and kind of talk through, as I do this, I'm going to talk through what are the changes that I'm going to be making. So yesterday I was able to put in how long my zipper is going to be. So this is 10 inches. I'm actually going to write this down in here. And I will change it based on what a standard length a zipper comes in. So that is going to be my facing, and I will do the same thing on every piece that I have of the jacket. Now, my hem on this is very wonky. In order for me to get a balanced hem, I really need to have my dad try it on. I measure and then mark. So for this particular piece, what I will do now is measure from this point to this point and make sure that it matches the other side. So they start and stop. That seam starts and stops in the same spot. Eventually, I'll decide whether to remove the notch and use the zipper placement as a connecting point. But for now, unless this changes and gets shorter, I just want to keep everything there. So I'm going to transfer this line over here. And I might as well just go all the way across because I have my hemline and everything matched up. So my hem facing on my side panel is here. So it does come pretty low. And do I have on the back? That's what it looks like on the back. And that looks accurate. And then on the front, it does come lower. You see that right there? Okay. So the back one is here. And the front one is there. So they don't need to be level necessarily. Okay, let's follow directions. Actually, let's pull that up again. So we have, and then what if we do, this is the bottom, this is the bottom, and then we go up this way 3/4, here, and my ruler is not long enough, and here, and we'll take this guy here, and we're going to connect here as softly as we can. That's not it. That's about it. That looks okay. Okay, I agree. Let's go that way, it looks like. There's a jacket that Kevin Costner wore in Yellowstone that has a front yoke. So I can look at that and see where it ends up on the chest. because I don't want it to come up so high it like looks childish. So I might do a little research on front yokes just to see where they hit on the body for men. I mean, my shirt that I'm wearing right now has a yoke, so I can also look at that. Alright, I'm going to eyeball this because it's going to take me too long to make that right. And here is good enough. Oh, my ruler totally went squiggly on me. Alright, so we have front yoke. This will be cut 2, and then add seam allowance so I don't forget. Because the zipper will go here. I'm barely in the frame, but the zipper will be here. So we'll need to add some form of seam allowance. And this, yeah. Alright, so we have that mapped out now. Knowing that my lining stops here, it goes through this section of the jacket up into the neck because this yoke is only external. Internally, I have a lining, but I just remembered something. I also need a pattern for the half moon at my back neck so that way I can place a label in it. And while I'm thinking about it, we're going to pattern this into the back piece. And by doing that, I'm going to say this thing is going to be 1, 2, 3. Let's do 3.5. And that's how deep it's going to be. And it's going to go in 1.5 inches inward to the neck seam. And then this way, let's freehand it. Actually, let's do it that way. So maybe something like this. Maybe not. Because it's going to be on the fold. That's going to look funny. Let's play. Two and 3/4 wide. At this point, I'm basically just making the pattern, and then I want the curve. Let's use the French ruler to connect. That way it's nice and clean. Oh, I almost had it freehand, but not quite. Alright, I just want to see what this shape looks like when I cut it out. And it kind of looks like, kind of. What if we do it that way? I think I like that better. Is it? Oh, I did cut my pattern. Oh, crap. Put a Band-Aid on it. Alright, this looks very messy, but this will serve as a lovely reminder and hopefully a lot faster for patterning. Another thing I can do is give myself notches to follow for connecting everything together when I'm sewing, which is something I often forget about. Let's scooch this one. I always forget a lot of things, and then it's in the middle of cutting or sewing that I then remember them. So we have the back neck half moon. We've got the back facing. We have the full lining. And I got the extended hem facing. For the front, I need to add a front facing that will be, I want to say front facing. Let's see, what did they do on this? They did do it. How big are you? I'm looking at my Ralph Lauren Denim Co. jacket, and they did 3.5. So I'm going to measure back from the center front line with a pencil, 3.5. Now, I don't know if this is different on a men's coat, if it's also 3.5, but 3.5 looks pretty decent to me. Alright, it's a new day, and I am going to take this time to kind of plan out this shoulder pleat thing that I have going on. It's partially a gusset, and it's a pleat all at the same time. It's the one that goes on the back shoulder, so that way when you go like this, the jacket expands with you. You see them on Carhartt, you see them on Filson, and I'm sure Pendleton might have, they might be a little too preppy to have something like that, but I could be wrong. But basically any kind of outdoors brand is going to have a jacket with a gusset in it. But basically what I'm going to do is kind of talk myself through how this gusset pleat expanding shoulder thing is going to work for a pattern, and how to function, what kind of seams I'm going to be doing, because I know the more I put together, the more, like, the thickness is going to get really tough for my sewing machine to sew through, and I already know that this Bernina is not going to cut it, because it barely made it through my last sewing project, and I didn't even catch on to what was happening with my stitch length until it was just like too far. I was like, I'm just gonna keep going, and I honestly think I'm gonna tear that whole thing apart and redo it one day. Okay, neighbor dog, it's time for you to maybe go take a nap. So I have my side panel taped to my back, and I know that whatever I cut out for this pleat gusset thing, it has to be one piece. Tapered in just a little, and then out and tapered in just a little, maybe. So this line might be moving this way. Then this whole upper panel here, I need to move my armhole out 3/4 of an inch. Where I'm most confused is this intersection here, because these pieces would, if I'm only doing it on the back, these pieces would typically stop at the side seam. And I don't have a side seam. I have a side panel. I need to move it in just a little bit. I honestly think I can taper it out here. So this will be what we see on the outside, this will be inside, and then my narrowest piece will be from my new outside to the inside. Did you get all of that? Does that make sense? Okay, so I decided to keep working on this pattern and figure out the placement of the pocket, the size, and the function, leaving myself plenty of notes to go off of when I go to pattern the real thing. And again, everything is just an estimate. It's going to migrate, it's going to move once I have this ready to fit on my dad. So what I have figured, so for the pockets, I have this pocket flap that comes to a slight point and it's asymmetric. And then I want to have a snap here. This is a double entry pocket. So you have an entry that you can come in here, and then also an entry underneath the pocket flap. I've sketched in single needle and double needle stitching. This is a style stitch, just a fashion stitch, and also setting as a reminder to do that. Bar tack. And I need a bar tack over here. And none over here, obviously, because we're not entering through here. All right, so we've got our one entryway here, and this between the two bar tacks. And then we have, you can lift open the pocket flap and enter this way for any given reason. But between the two, there will be a layer where there's an internal pocket and there is a side pocket. So this exterior pocket would be cut 2. And then I would stitch them together, fold them back, very likely to have a clean finish, top stitch, and then this would be top stitched. I could possibly clean finish this whole square, top stitch them all the way around. And then this pocket flap, cut 2, and then this one basically I would cut 2 and then turn along this, snipping my edges and curves and grading them down so they can be nice and clean. The ends would be open raw, and my seam allowance here would probably be 3/4. Reason being is I'm going to sew it up this way and then flip it down this way and then top stitch. Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, please hit the like button and hit subscribe. There's a lot of you that watch this channel and are not subscribed. So, and if you know somebody that would absolutely love to watch content like this, to be inspired to do pattern making and sewing, share it with them. So I am going to finish editing this video and then schedule it out, but then I'm going to figure out what is next in store for this jacket. There are a lot of things I still have to do, but yeah, I'll figure it out and I'll inform you along the way. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.